Hey guys, Nick here, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to utilize Vienna Symphonic Library's Big Bang Orchestra collection with various modules that are available now for purchasing in order to create an action or a boss fight piece of music for your video game project. So what I have here is my orchestral layer, my percussion layer, and my melodic layer. So why we are divided like this is that once we are not going to render our piece of music like all together like this, because it's going to sound very static and stale and it's going to start sounding repetitive. So we are dividing these little modules here and rendering them, actually looping them as different clips that will jump from one another inside game audio middleware software like Wise or FMOD or whatever. So you as a composer can just export all of these individually and give them to a game sound designer or game music programmer whose job is to implement all of these so they work together. So what I have here are my low orchestra layers, my high orchestra layers, low percussion, high percussion, some crashes, snare rolls, timpani and orchestral rips, and of course my horns and trumpets as melodic layers. So I have everything hosted here inside my Vienna Ensemble Pro 7, which is pretty cool because it also has equalizers, and I'm sorry, it jumped through another screen. So it's got equalizers here and other mix tools, plugins which are integrated into the engine of VE Pro 7, that all of these presets are custom tailored to Vienna Symphonic Library's instrument range, so you can have like pretty fast results. So as you can see here, in my project here, I have absolutely nothing going on in my mixer here, so everything is straight out of the box. So the libraries that I used here are the Big Bang Orchestra Capricorn, which has these orchestral riffs. We usually call them loops, but you can modify them in various ways to get different results every time, so it doesn't sound too boring and repetitive. And also I have my Capricorn high riffs here. So it's basically the same instrument libraries, these two, but I just divided them into two separate layers for greater control. So in my orchestral high here, I have my orchestral riffs, and my low riffs are basically muted, silence, and the other way around here in my low riffs, I have them playing and my high riffs are muted. I have the black eye, which is the symphonic orchestral effects like rips and runs, phrases and effects and that sort of stuff. My percussion low and percussion high are two different layers from Big Bang Orchestra Eridanus, which is a percussion loop library that you have here. While key switching these red ones, you are basically changing the percussive patterns, and the white keys here are playing like the end here, and this is the loop itself. Also, I have my high percussion loops here going on, played by sticks or by brushes. So the first white key, the C, is the loop itself, and the D is the end impact. So see, so this is it. My crashes are from Big Bang Orchestra Dorado. It's called Super Crash. It's basically all the big metallic instruments in your percussive ensemble. This type of thing. Timpani Timpani are from Fornax, which are also some sound designed and more exciting percussion libraries from which are a part of Big Bang Orchestra modules. Yeah, so these are the timpani. I have my snares from Dorado, which is also one of the percussive libraries from the Big Bang Orchestra series. And you have your rolls here as well. Horns. Now, horns are from their latest library called the Jupiter. So I'm using horns here, only their legatos, in order to create some sort of like a melody that, you know, kind of like plays from time to time in an action cue. And Kopernikus are the trumpets, is a trumpet library basically. You know, so that's all hosted inside my Vienna Ensemble Pro. All of these have their own sort of like compressions and exciters and equalizers in order for them to blend with one another together. And why I composed a piece of music like this is that I usually have duplicated my this is actually the orchestral low riffs. I just needed to separate different pieces here, different sections from one another. So once I am bouncing these loops, I can cut and edit, so I can also have a sort of a tail end here, which will be clean, and it will not, the loop itself will not continue with this. So if I want to stop my piece of music on at a certain point, I will have a tail reverb here from like this one library. You see? So basically you can end a piece of music at any point and it will, you know, you will have this impact. So this is the reason why I have this one separated, so two of them together can jump into one another. And each one of these can play individually inside of a game engine as a separate, you know, piece of music. And then if you just add layers, so for example, at this, like this orchestra high here, you know, and then they also have their own reverb tail. So once you combine them with these, now you can play these together as well. And the reason why I have here, you will see key switches here, are just triggering different riffs. So this entire high orchestra layer can basically, you have 4 bars of one riff and 4 bars of other riffs, and my some of my low riffs have their key switches. They're playing just like a one piece of music. Most of them are playing actually throughout the whole 8 bars of loops. And my percussion loops, and I have this impact here just because of that reverb tail when I want to end a piece of music. And the same thing goes with these like percussive highs. They can play together. So, for example, inside of a game, you will have situations when everything will play together like this. You know, so, but let's say that we want to, for example, just because we have these individual layers, so for example, one of the let's say, situations inside of a game cue will be like one piece, one part of music plays just the let's say low percussion and low riff, and we have a crash and a snare. These crashes and snares serve to be as a sort of a roll in inside into a segment of music, so nothing is sounding like it's edited pretty hard. So we need to have like a sort of like a roll in from one cue to another. This is why each one of these has their own like snare rolls and crashes. So we have something like this, and then in this next situation we'll have everything, you know, everything together. You know, so in this next piece we will have a situation playing like this, and we will have a melody. Then all of it will be playing together. So this is why we are dividing all of these into segments. So once we export them, we have, as I said, greater control for all of these individual layers, that then we are making our action music sounding dynamic and more interactive. So for example, as your health bar is going lower, we are adding more layers in order to make everything sounding more intense. And then as you drink your health potion, then we are bringing back and like shutting down some of the more suspenseful layers, and then leaving like everything as, like, for example, your health bar is full and we have like only orchestra low and the percussion low segment playing together, you know, and then we end the piece of music here, for example. You see, and this is where you defeated your enemies or the boss in the game, and that's why we have these these separate spaces here. So once we render this cue, we will render it, let's say we will render it like with just an additional bar of reverb here. So we have this tail end, so we will not render it like this, so it cuts so that it doesn't cut abruptly, you know. Sorry, I made a small mistake here. Okay, and here where it says end fight, let's say that we I misnamed it here. I wanted to call this like death music. So if you die in the middle of your combat, you have a separate layer here basically, which is giving you a sort of like a musical notification that your character has died, you know, like. And this is where these rips from I think it's called, yeah, from Black Eye are coming in pretty nicely. And inside my Capricorn, you have this section key switch here called the note release. So once you release the note, your riff will play the note that ends it. So that's why we have this reverb tail. If we selected the option of cut release, we would just have a clean cut on the end of the loop, which will be which will make our segments end abruptly, and we don't want that. So when everything is playing together, this sounds like a big wall of sound, and it sounds too massive and too repetitive and, let's say, static. So that is why we have divided these into small segments. So once we put it inside a game's audio engine, we will have greater control on adding various layers and making our music sounding more dynamic. And we each cue here let's say percussive cues here, which are my, I like to call it my basics of my game action music. They're always playing and they're always turned on, so I always want to have a sort of a pre-roll so they don't if we didn't have these. So let's say this loop here plays into this one, you know, so it sounds pretty, you know, they changed their rhythms, but it sounds like you jumped from one spot to another. So this is why we have these sort of like snare rolls and, let's say, crash, so it sounds more interesting. So you see, you have this sort of a bond between these two clips, these two layers of percussion, so it doesn't jump from one another abruptly. So you have a small like roll in, basically like a swoosh type of effect. You could use a swoosh type of effect, but I wanted to use like snare rolls from Big Bang Orchestra library here, which is called, it's called Dorado, and it's pretty cool. It's got a whole bunch of drums here and everything, so you can utilize it in order to create these big and Jupiter and Kopernikus horns and trumpets I use here just as at certain points, so we have a melodic layer for our hero that's fighting our boss or a whole group of enemies, so we don't have like this entire rhythmic section going on. So from time to time we want to introduce the melody in order to keep our music cue interesting. And that's your basics of creating game action music. This is the approach that I was going for throughout many years of my career, and I'm quite happy to see that the guys from Vienna Symphonic Library have created the tools like the Big Bang Orchestra Capricorns and Eridanus and Dorado. So I have at my disposal some of the tools which will give me quick results, which I can then use as building blocks to create something original and something always new and always interesting for my game action music. So yeah, check them out. All of these libraries are a part of Vienna Symphonic Library's Big Bang Orchestra collection. These are all different modules which you're purchasing separately, so you can always you don't have to buy them all together. You can always choose which ones you want to try and which ones will fit your production the best. So there's a lot of options from Big Bang Orchestra that you can implement into your own production. So I highly recommend to test it out. And as I said, nothing is mixed here outside of Vienna Ensemble Pro. So I have my EQs and my equalizers and my compressors and my exciter, which are bundled here inside VE Pro 7. So it is very cool to have, like, you can create a whole template out of this and have instant finished and processed sounds that you wanna, that's record ready, as we like to call it. So have fun, guys, with these if you want to check them out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.